After my dad's sudden bankruptcy, he somehow got insanely lucky and landed a deal with a major player from the Morgan family. The man promised to invest $50 million to help revive my dad's company. Of course, that kind of money doesn't come for free. The price? My sister would have to marry Damon Morgan, the youngest son of the family. 6 months ago, Damon was in a car crash that left him in a coma. He's been bedridden and unresponsive ever since. My sister is a gifted dancer, a prodigy with a future people would kill for. There's no way she can throw away the prime of her life on someone who might never wake up. Since the deal was put on the table, my parents have been fighting non-stop, screaming matches that move from the balcony to the living room, from the kitchen to the couch. My sister cries all day, every day. She's passed out more than once from how hard she sobs. They all call me slow, say I don't understand much. They're right, most of the time, I don't. All I can do is lie flat on the attic floor, listening in on my parents' fights. "Raymond, you heartless bastard," my mom screamed one night. "How could you even think of something that disgusting? Selling your own daughter like she's nothing. My sweet Caroline, marrying a vegetable? Are you trying to destroy us both? What else do you want me to do?" my dad shot back. "If I don't do this, how the hell are we supposed to survive? Everything you and that precious daughter of yours eat, wear, use, who do you think pays for it? It's me, busting my ass out there." They didn't fight for long this time. Not because they were tired. The doorbell rang. Whenever there were guests, they became a picture-perfect couple, sweet, smiling, hopelessly in love. "Good evening, Mr. Raymond, ma'am." The voice was familiar. Dylan. The boy next door. My childhood best friend. The one I've secretly loved for 13 years. I ran out, heart racing. He was already on the stairs, heading up. He was smiling, wide and bright. But then he turned, right into my sister's room. The moment she saw him, she broke down harder than before. Dylan pulled her into his arms like he was made for it, strong and steady, like a tree she could collapse against. Maybe I stared too hard, because he noticed me. I panicked. Pulled back. I was about to run. Then I heard him. "Bella," he said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Don't go. Please?" It was the first time he ever asked me for anything. The first time he ever said my name like it meant something. So I stayed. Then I saw him drop to his knees. His voice, soft, reverent, almost like a prayer. "Bella, will you marry Damon in Caroline's place?" Marry in her place? I didn't really understand what that meant. I was still turning the words over in my head. Dylan must have thought I was saying no, because he kept going. "If you do this, if you marry Damon for her, I'll do anything you want. Bella, this is the first time I've ever begged you. Caroline isn't like you. She's bright, full of life. If she's forced into the Morgan family, into all their stiff rules and old-school traditions, she'll break." So I said yes. I married Damon instead of my sister. Because I didn't want her to die. Because I wanted Dylan to be happy. The moment I agreed, my parents stopped fighting. They started asking how I was doing, started checking in on me like I mattered. For the first time, they looked at me the way they used to look at Caroline. Being a stand-in bride isn't so bad after all. Damon turned out to be incredibly kind. He's a patient, of course, so the wedding was small, quiet, nothing fancy. Even so, I was exhausted by the end of it. By the time we got to the bridal suite, I didn't even remember to eat. I collapsed on the bed and passed out. It wasn't until the next morning, waking up beside a man I didn't know, that it hit me. This wasn't my home anymore. I got dressed, still a little foggy, and when I turned to leave, I accidentally knocked into Damon's chest. My head's kind of hard. I worried I might have bruised him. So I nervously unbuttoned his shirt to check for any swelling. What I saw stopped me cold. His skin, pale and smooth, was covered in faint, crisscrossed scars. So many. I'd never seen anything like it. I couldn't look away. Then, in the stillness, I thought I heard something, like a muffled groan. I leaned in, gently blew across one of the scars. "There," I whispered. "If I blow on it, it won't hurt anymore. Even if you have ugly scars, you're still the most beautiful boy I've ever seen, so don't be sad, okay?" I meant every word. Damon really was beautiful. Even more beautiful than Dylan, who I'd loved for 13 years. He didn't even seem real. I lifted his arm, brought it close, and gave it a tiny bite. Almost instantly, a soft flush bloomed across his skin. A perfect row of bite marks appeared, red and delicate. I barely had time to feel guilty before someone knocked on the door. It was the butler, come to tell me it was time for breakfast. The Morgan family was huge. Even breakfast felt like some kind of formal banquet, one long table packed with people I couldn't tell apart. I didn't bother trying to remember faces. I just kept my head down and focused on the food in front of me. And the food? Honestly amazing. But the people, not so much. Someone kept kicking me under the table. Once. Twice. 3 times. By the 6th kick, I'd had enough. I aimed carefully and kicked back, hard. There was a loud thud. Terry, the 6th Morgan son, crashed to the floor. Everyone at the table froze for a second, then the arguing started. Sharp words flew back and forth across the table like knives. I couldn't keep up, their vocabulary was way above my head. Still, I could guess, someone was definitely getting scolded. After breakfast, the butler led me to meet the Morgan family matriarch. She wore a velvet dress, elegant and soft, with a stylish cut that made her look like someone straight out of a magazine. But her smile was warm. Kind, even. She held my hand and spoke to me gently, giving me all kinds of instructions about how to take care of Damon. "Don't worry too much," she said. "Just give him your heart. Be good to him." Before I came here, my parents had coached me well. Talk less. Act clueless. If I understood something, I was to say yes quietly. If I didn't, just smile and nod. The less I said, the more I could pass for Caroline. It worked perfectly. Before I left, Grandma Morgan slid a heavy bracelet onto my wrist, glittering with gemstones. She stroked my hair and called me a good girl. I was so happy. I wanted to talk. I pulled the curtains tight, no light, no gaps, and whispered secrets to Damon. Everyone said he'd never wake up. Which meant I could say whatever I wanted, no one would hear, and no one would laugh. He was my safest place. Hee, I'm so smart. I told him all about breakfast, how Terry kept kicking me under the table. How, after the meal, one of the Morgan daughters tried to shoulder check me in the hallway but missed and ended up falling flat on her butt. But the most important thing, I said, voice full of pride, is that Grandma called me a good girl today. Can you believe that, Damon? It's the first time in my whole life someone's ever called me that. Before this, they all just called me the dumb one. I giggled. Damon, marrying you is the best thing that's ever happened to me. The curtains shut out the day. In here, it felt like nighttime. I flopped down beside him, smiling at nothing. I didn't notice the shift in the air. Didn't see Damon's eyes slowly open. Didn't catch the way those deep, cold eyes, dark as still water, narrowed slightly. Or the faint, almost impossible smile that curled at the edge of his lips. The bed at the Morgan estate was huge and impossibly soft. I used to sleep like a rock. But lately, in my dreams, someone kept poking my face and muttering, "Where'd this little dummy come from?" I got so annoyed, I bit them. When I woke up, half in a daze, I saw it. A neat row of bite marks on Damon's hand. Guilt hit me like a brick. I decided we had to sleep in separate beds. What if one night I dreamed he was a giant chicken leg and took a chunk out of him? The food here was way too good. In less than 2 weeks, I'd already plumped up noticeably. The butler started buying me a whole new wardrobe, every piece fit like it was custom made. I glanced over at Damon, still lying in bed, and thought it wasn't fair to spoil just myself. So I got out my tape measure and started taking his measurements. If I could make clothes for my dolls and teddy bears back then, I could make a few sets for Damon too. Except Damon was way bigger. I had to measure him from head to toe, and halfway through I was panting like I'd run a marathon. Turns out, being a vegetable doesn't make you any lighter. He was heavy. Solid, too, his body was stiff, like he was carved from stone. Just as I was catching my breath, the butler showed up with a warm smile. "Young madam, how about some afternoon tea? I can take care of the rest here." I handed over the notes I'd scribbled down and gave him a bright smile. The butler was responsible and talented, he'd get Damon's clothes made even better than I could. The sun was warm and golden, pouring down over the garden like honey. I sat in a wicker chair, just like I'd seen Caroline do, legs tucked neatly, a book open on my lap, trying to look graceful and quiet. The chair creaked gently as it swayed, back and forth, until I drifted off. I don't know how long I slept. But suddenly, there was a chill. A breeze snuck beneath my clothes, brushing against my skin. My eyes snapped open. Terry was on top of me. My blouse was gaping open, buttons ripped loose, hanging by threads. He was grinning down at me, eyes gleaming with something that made my stomach twist. "Sis-in-law," he whispered, voice dripping with sleaze, "my vegetable brother can't keep you warm, can he? You must be so lonely." "Don't worry. Little brother's here to help." No one had ever touched me like that before. Back home, I lived in the attic. Hidden. Safe. Now I froze, unsure of what to do, except for the one thing I did know. Disgust. A deep, instinctive, overwhelming disgust. Without thinking, I grabbed the nearest thing. A porcelain bowl. Then a teapot. Then whatever else my hands could find. I threw everything I had, every ounce of strength, at him. I eat a lot, so I'm strong. And because I never wanted to be bullied for being the dumb one, I'd secretly taken up boxing. Terry didn't stand a chance against me. Within minutes, he was on the ground, bleeding, arms over his head, begging me to stop. The noise had drawn in a crowd, Morgan family staff circling us like vultures. When they rushed Terry to the hospital, I was still standing there, hands smeared in blood. That's when Mrs. Morgan snapped. She came at me screaming, wild-eyed, slapping me across the face, over and over. "You little monster. You nearly killed Terry. You're a murderer." I just stood there, numb, letting the blows land. That only made her angrier. Her hits got harder. Her words, meaner, filthier. "You cursed little whore. You almost killed my son. Get out. The Morgan family doesn't want garbage like you for a daughter-in-law." I didn't understand everything she said. But I knew one word, whore. Was I a whore? I didn't know. People usually just called me stupid. My sister always called me that, idiot. But she also said only she was allowed to call me that. If anyone else did, I had to hit back. Hard. She taught me other words too, whore, slut, homewrecker. She said if anyone ever used those on me, hit them even harder. So I did. I shoved Mrs. Morgan back, then kicked her, twice. "You called me a whore. That means you're a bad person. And bad people get hit." It was him. I shouted, pointing toward the direction Terry had been taken. "He tore my clothes. He started it." That's when the whispers started. Something in the way I spoke, in the way I moved, people noticed. "She's acting weird," someone said. "Is she slow or something?" Then someone else laughed. A vegetable and an idiot. What a perfect match. I wanted to fight back. I really did. But there were too many of them. Too many voices, too many eyes. I covered my ears, but the words still slipped through the cracks, slithering in like cold wind. After all this time being laughed at, today I finally understood what idiot meant. It meant when people misunderstood you, and you couldn't explain why. It meant getting yelled at and standing there blank, mind fogged up, heart pounding, tongue frozen. It meant being small, helpless, scared. It meant you deserved to be bullied. I didn't know what to do. I panicked, like an ant on a hot pan, scrambling, running in circles. I ran and ran, until I slammed into someone's chest. "Bella," a voice said, low and smooth like a slow song, "what are you running from?" I looked up, and locked eyes with him. Dylan. My Dylan. The boy I'd loved for 13 years. The one who used to punch people out cold when they called me names. I hadn't cried when Terry pinned me down. I hadn't cried when Mrs. Morgan slapped me and screamed in my face. I hadn't cried when the whole crowd chased me with the word idiot. But now, seeing Dylan standing there like a hero in a storybook, arms open like the whole world was finally safe. My nose stung. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt like crying. I wanted so badly to grab Dylan's sleeve and tell him everything. Tell him how Terry tore at my clothes and looked at me like I was something dirty. Tell him how Mrs. Morgan shoved me, slapped me, screamed at me to get out. Tell him how they all laughed at me, called me an idiot, like I was less than human. I had so many things, too many things, clawing at my throat, begging to be said. But Dylan just looked at me. Cold. Distant. "Bella," he said, "I'm busy right now. I don't have time to chat." Just like that, all those words caught in my throat. I dropped my gaze. Took a quiet step forward, slumping slightly, something hollow blooming in my chest. Then he came back. My heart lifted, just a little. But then he spoke. "Bella, you're not a child anymore, okay? You can't act like some spoiled little princess in the Morgan family. And don't even think about running home. If you leave, what happens to your dad's company? To Caroline?" Dylan was smart. So smart he could read me like a book. And standing there in front of him, all my little hopes, my secret thoughts, he saw them all. He was right. I couldn't go home. If I did, everything would fall apart. My family would go down with me. My dad. My mom. Caroline. My nose stung even harder. But I couldn't cry. I couldn't. Crying made my face look ugly. So I lifted my chin, forced my mouth into something like a smile. "Me? Throw a tantrum?" I said, voice light and shaky. "Never." Terry's incident reached all the way to Grandma. I was still sitting outside the hospital, trying to figure out how to apologize, how to make things right and earn back the Morgan family's forgiveness, when the butler found me. He said Terry only had surface wounds. Looked bad, but nothing serious. But Mrs. Morgan? Getting hit herself? Seeing her precious son beaten bloody? That, she couldn't swallow. The moment she got home, she launched a crusade against me. The mansion filled with people, relatives, staff, guests, gathering like it was some kind of show. She dared hit Terry? Hit me, her mother-in-law, she roared, practically foaming at the mouth. If I don't get an explanation today, I swear I won't let this go. She glared at me like a lioness ready to pounce. Then a voice cut through the noise. Sharp. Cold. Really? And what kind of explanation are you looking for from my wife? The crowd parted like the sea. And there he stood. I stared, confused. Wait, he looked just like my husband. Same face. Same posture. Same sharp, unreadable eyes. Wow, I said, blinking. You look exactly like my husband. Are you his twin brother? I stepped closer and sniffed the air. Even smell the same. A soft laugh rumbled above my head. He reached out and ruffled my hair, messing it up completely. I didn't even get the chance to be mad. Because in the next second, he leaned in, hot breath curling against my ear. His voice, low and lazy, made my skin prickle. "Silly girl," he murmured, "you can't even recognize your own husband?" Damon stood there like a king who'd been hiding in plain sight. Silent, watchful, and suddenly, unmistakably powerful. The air around him shifted. His presence hit like cold steel, calm, commanding, dangerous. I should have been afraid. But when he looked at me, there was warmth behind his eyes, an amused softness, like I was the only one in the room worth his attention. The fear melted away, replaced by something I hadn't felt in days. Safety. You're awake?" I asked, stunned. Before he could answer, Mrs. Morgan cut in, practically spitting fire. But Damon didn't even flinch. He turned to Grandma first, offering a respectful bow. Every move precise, polished. Then he faced Mrs. Morgan, and smiled, sharp, slow, mocking. "If I hadn't woken up," he said coolly, "would I have just watched while my wife was cornered and humiliated like this?" His voice didn't rise, but it cracked through the room like a whip. Mrs. Morgan turned red. She opened her mouth to shout something, then hesitated. Because Damon looked at her. Just looked. And that was enough. She backed down a step, flustered. What about Terry, then?" she muttered, her tone suddenly uncertain. "How are we handling that?" Damon let out a low chuckle. "Glad you asked." With a flick of his fingers, a tablet screen lit up, and a video began to play, right in front of her. Surveillance footage. Clear as day, Terry lunging, Terry grabbing, Terry forcing himself on me. "You should be grateful," Damon said, voice dipped in ice, "that I wasn't there when it happened. Because if I had been..." His smile turned vicious. "I wouldn't have hesitated to ruin my own blood." Mrs. Morgan clutched her chest and collapsed into a dramatic heap on the floor. But the performance ended there. With Damon's arrival, the entire ambush dissolved like smoke. The crowd dispersed quickly, like a tide rolling back out to sea. Gone, along with their accusations. Even Grandma, usually so composed, had tears glimmering in her eyes. She swatted Damon gently on the arm. "You little rascal," she scolded, choking on a relieved laugh. And just like that, the icy, untouchable Damon softened completely. No more sharp edges. No more cold dominance. Just a grandson, sitting beside his grandmother, smiling like a good boy. They chatted back and forth, swapping stories and memories, half of which I didn't really understand. I sat nearby at the garden table, nibbling on desserts, pretending to be calm. I would have looked perfectly composed if I hadn't accidentally dozed off mid-cake. Somewhere between the sugar and the sunlight, I slipped into a nap. In the haze, I thought I heard laughter. When I blinked awake, I was in Damon's arms. He wasn't bulky, but he held me like he weighed nothing. Effortless. Steady. And up this close. From this death-by-handsomeness angle, I realized he really did look like a TV drama lead. "My silly girl," he murmured, a playful smile in his voice, "do you think your husband's handsome?" He looked good. But his voice? Even better. So good, in fact, I forgot he just called me silly. I blinked up at him, completely spaced out, and replied without thinking. "Very handsome." Then added, "But I'm not silly." Damon laughed. And that smile, bright, easy, beautiful. It was dazzling enough to steal the breath right out of me. It wasn't until Damon gently laid me down on the massive bed that I realized just how far he'd carried me. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. He didn't take long. When he emerged, he had nothing on but a towel slung low around his waist. Beads of water clung to his skin, tracing down the sharp lines of his abs, catching the light like glass. I felt my face heat up like someone had lit a match beneath my cheeks. I grabbed the nearest glass and downed water like it would save me. Damon's eyes locked on mine, dark, quiet, intense. "Now that I'm awake," he said, voice low and smooth, "we can pick up where we left off." Where we left off. He tilted his head, like I was being adorably dense. What do you think? What do married people usually do? His finger, still damp, brushed against my cheek. It came away with a dusting of white sugar from the dessert I'd been munching before I fell asleep. Caught red-handed, my blush deepened. Damon's gaze turned sharper, darker, like a predator ready to strike. I took an instinctive step back. He pulled me right back in, wrapping me tight in his arms. Then his lips met mine. Slow. Deep. The kind of kiss that steals your breath and doesn't give it back. Little fool, he whispered against my mouth, you forgot you need to breathe? All the air vanished from my lungs. The world around me began to tilt. Then blur. And finally, fade to black. When I opened my eyes again. 2 days had passed. I found out from the doctor that I'd had a fever. Probably from the stress, too many things crashing down all at once. Or maybe I'd just been too scared. You're finally awake? Damon's voice came from beside me, tinged with mockery, but softened by something else, something almost wounded. If you'd stayed out any longer, they might have started treating me like some kind of animal in a zoo. His tone was teasing, sure. But the exhaustion in his eyes told a different story. Bloodshot. Sleepless. He'd clearly been by my side the whole time. I never really learned how to comfort people. My parents didn't like it when I said silly things, so I stopped trying. Most days, I just copied the way my sister carried herself, quiet, graceful, invisible. So I lowered my head, pretending to play dead. But Damon didn't let me disappear. He reached out, pulled me into his arms. Little fool, he murmured, I'm sorry. Saying sorry while still calling me that? Damon really was the worst. If I'd woken up sooner, none of that would have happened. You wouldn't have gone through all that. So he wasn't apologizing for the nickname. He was sorry for the way I'd been hurt. That tight, hard-to-swallow feeling in my chest. That was being wronged. That's what feeling wronged meant. I promise, he said, voice low and certain, it won't happen again. So, will you forgive me? Okay. I said quickly, holding out my pinky. A pinky swear, something childish and silly. But Damon smiled. Like I'd just given him the most grown-up answer in the world. A week after I left the hospital, Terry was ambushed during a late-night walk. Someone pulled a hood over his head and knocked him out cold. Word spread fast through the Morgan family. Everyone whispered it had to be Damon. Mrs. Morgan stormed into the estate like a woman on a warpath. All this, she snapped, pointing an accusing finger, over a woman? Damon, you'd turn on your own blood? You're nothing but a beast. Damon didn't flinch. Isn't a man who can't protect his wife the real beast here? He replied, voice calm but sharp. Then he smiled. It was the kind of smile that made your skin crawl, a little too smooth, a little too dangerous. But since you already called me a beast, then I suppose doing something truly ruthless is perfectly in character, don't you think? He raised an eyebrow, eyes gleaming with mischief and threat. Mrs. Morgan had no comeback. Years ago, when she was pregnant with Damon, her husband had cheated. Damon was born prematurely. He stuttered for years. And she, bitter, angry, humiliated, took it all out on him. When Grandma Morgan found out, she tore into them both and took Damon away to raise herself. Maybe it was those early years of swallowing pain in silence. But once Damon grew up, he became a man no one dared cross. Sharp. Efficient. Merciless. The vegetative state? All part of a plan. A performance staged by Damon himself. A way to flush out traitors inside the family and secure the land in South City. Mrs. Morgan never stopped using the title of mother to try and rein him in. But Damon didn't even see her as an obstacle anymore. Her words meant nothing to him. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got, until she finally stormed out, teeth clenched, heels stabbing the floor with every step. Damon had been scarce lately, gone from morning till late at night. People said he was dealing with the traitors. The night he finally returned, I was fast asleep. Something cold suddenly brushed against my neck. I flinched, half asleep, and pulled the blanket tighter around myself, thinking it was just a draft. Then I heard a low voice, laced with teasing. "Heartless little thing. I'm gone for days and you sleep like a baby." My eyes fluttered open. Damon. I turned over and without thinking, like hugging my stuffed bear, wrapped my arms around him. Back when Damon was still pretending to be in a coma, I used to curl up beside him and whisper all my little secrets, complaints, dreams, stories no one else wanted to hear. Now that he was awake, the roles had flipped. It was him holding me, murmuring in my ear like the dark couldn't hold his anger. He told me about the traitor, his voice low, but full of bitterness, his teeth clenched with rage. The man had been his closest brother in arms. They'd weathered everything together. But in the end, the guy fell for a pretty face. He sold out Damon's bid proposal. Tampered with the brakes on his car. Tried to kill him. I'd been half asleep, but those words made sure I stayed awake. If my sister ever did something like that to me, I think my heart would crack into pieces. I reached up, gently cupped his face, and said with the same silly, soft voice I used when comforting my childhood teddy bear. "Poor little bear. No more feeling sad. Kisses and hugs, and all the bad stuff goes away." It sounded childish even to me. Damon let out a surprised laugh. "You treating me like a kid now, huh, little fool?" he teased. I blinked, playing along. "If you don't like it, I won't hug you next time." At that, Damon's gaze turned sharp, possessive, dangerous, and just a little bit wild. "You dare," he said. "From now on, your hugs are mine. If you hug anyone else, I'll break their damn arms." So dramatic. So ridiculous. I almost laughed. Who would even want to hug me? But I didn't say anything. I just pressed my lips together and stayed quiet. He looked so broken. So hurt. If my hug could patch him up, just a little. Then yeah. He could have as many as he wanted. Damon clung to me the entire night, singing nursery rhymes like it was the most natural thing in the world. When morning came, that soft, childlike man was gone. In his place stood the Damon everyone else knew. The cold-faced heir, sharp-suited and unreadable, carrying power like a blade. But something had changed. Not loudly. Not all at once. Just, quietly, steadily, like the shift of sunlight across a floor. His gaze when it landed on me? Softer. The nickname Little Fool had melted into baby or sweetheart. And the day of his birthday banquet. It was the kind of night that dripped with money. Chandeliers blazing, champagne flowing, strings playing in the corners, and every socialite in the city lining up for attention. Mrs. Morgan had invited half the nation's eligible heiresses. I'd never been to something this grand. I was scared. Damon saw it in my eyes and pulled me aside. "You don't have to go," he said gently. "If you're not comfortable, then don't." "But," I looked at him, voice barely a whisper, "if I don't show up, will people say you've lost face because of me?" He didn't answer with words. Just grabbed me and kissed me. Hard. "Sweetheart," he murmured against my lips, "my reputation has never depended on anyone but me. As long as I'm here, you don't have to prove a damn thing. Just be you." Something hit me deep in the chest. Sharp. Warm. It made my nose sting. "And with me," Damon added, his voice low and steady, "you don't have to be the sensible one. You're enough just the way you are. I love you, no matter what that looks like." I took a long breath. And another. I almost kept it together. But that last line. It broke through every wall I had. The tears came fast, hot, and unstoppable. My makeup? Ruined. But I still reached for his hand and held it tight. "I thought about it seriously," I told him, voice trembling. "And I want to go to the banquet. I should be by your side." What if something happens and you need a hug? Who's gonna be there for you if I'm not? Damon chuckled. Little fool. Who in that room could possibly hurt me? He didn't ruffle my hair this time, probably for the sake of my carefully done-up look. But my rose-colored lipstick? Smeared. Shiny and scattered like petals after a storm. The birthday banquet was supposed to be perfect. But in the end, someone still found a way to ruin it. An hour before the night was set to end, Mrs. Morgan dropped her bomb. She surrounded herself with a crowd, her people, her allies. And exposed the truth. That I wasn't Caroline. That I was the fool. That I had tricked the Morgan family. Tricked her. With all the glitz and grandeur the Morgans liked to flaunt, there were cameras everywhere. Reporters. Live streams. The moment she made her accusation, it hit the internet like wildfire. In just one day, everyone knew. I was the idiot who had swapped places with her sister. Once, they mocked me with a fool and a vegetable, what a perfect match. Now they whispered things uglier. Vile little gold digger. She tricked her way into wealth and power. Damon must have some twisted taste. Damon said nothing. But I could feel the storm simmering beneath his silence. He just pulled me into his arms, tight. And whispered in my ear. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I shook my head, eyes stinging. It's okay, I said. They're not wrong. I am different. I've made peace with that. I'm not sad about me. I looked up at him, voice trembling. I'm just sad for you. Because yes, my parents had always treated me differently. Not like they did my sister. Not with the same kind of love. But even so, they never missed my birthday. They'd let me blow out candles, eat cake, even if it wasn't perfect. And for that one day, I always felt like I mattered. My birthday was the happiest day of my year. And all I wanted was for Damon's birthday to feel like that too. Like his happiest day. Instead, it had been hijacked. Shattered. By the one person who should have protected him first. If my parents had done that to me, humiliated me like that, I think I would have broken. So no, I wasn't crying for myself. I was crying for Damon. Damon held me like he was afraid I'd vanish. Tight. Fierce. Like we were the last two broken things on earth. Somehow fitting perfectly into each other's missing pieces. That night, the Morgan family became front-page news. Scandal. Betrayal. Switched identities. The tabloids had a field day, and the gossip-hungry public swarmed the story like flies on honey. Damon could have silenced everything, he had the power. But with media storms, he knew one truth. Suppressing things only made them louder. So instead of wiping the story clean, he focused on one thing. Scrubbing every post that insulted me. He didn't care what they said about him. But anyone who came for me was silenced fast. Still, the mess was too big to hide. It spread. Until it reached the last place I wanted it to. Home. My parents. My sister. They found out. The phone call came quickly. But it wasn't yelling. And it wasn't comfort either. Just calm. Measured. Clinical. Sweetheart, my dad said. It's time to divorce Damon. Divorce? I rolled the word around in my head, unfamiliar and sharp. Almost like the word marriage had felt the day I stumbled into it, dazed and unprepared. I didn't even have to ask why. They already had the script ready. It was our fault, my dad admitted. I shouldn't have let the money blind me. Shouldn't have sent you off to the Morgans like that. I didn't think it would get this bad. They sounded like they cared. Sounded like they regretted it. But maybe that's just how people are. Regret doesn't show up until it's too late to matter. Bella, my mom said, he's not a vegetable anymore. You can't control him. Damon is the head of the Morgan family now, he's powerful, rich, and women are lining up for him. But you? Her voice didn't waver. You're different. You need protection. You're not like the others. One day, if he gets tired of you, if he wants to ruin you, you won't even see it coming. She wasn't angry. She was serious. Calm. Like she was giving me life advice. Like this was a practical move, not an emotional one. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I was fragile. Maybe Damon could snap me in half if he ever wanted to. But as I sat there with the phone in my hand, one thought pounded through my chest. Leaving him hurt. Even just imagining it made my heart feel heavy, like someone was tapping a tiny hammer against it. Tap. 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 I didn't know how to answer. All I knew was the thought of not being with Damon made it hard to breathe. The phone was suddenly snatched from my hand. Damon. Turns out, he'd been standing behind me the whole time. Listening. And this was the part where he couldn't stay silent any longer. "Oh, what a pair you are," he said coldly, voice like a blade drawn in the dark. "Such selfless, noble parents." His eyes were calm. His tone was anything but. "Now you're worried about Bella's future? Now, after everything, now you want her to leave me?" He didn't wait for a response. "Let me guess, back when you handed her over to a vegetable, what were you thinking? That Caroline was too valuable to waste on a ruined man? That Bella was just a fool, a nobody, and if she suffered a little in the Morgan family, it didn't really matter?" His jaw clenched. "You say you're trying to protect her now, but are you really? Or are you just afraid of what the Morgans might do to you if this all goes south?" Silence on the other end. Not even a breath. Because they didn't have an answer. Maybe they didn't know it themselves. Were they speaking out of guilt? Out of fear? Out of some belated form of love? It was impossible to untangle. Because life was never that simple. Never just right or wrong. Never just love or self-interest. It's always both. Always messy. And Damon knew it. He ended the call himself, then pulled me into his arms, so tight it felt like he was trying to press me into his very bones. "Sweetheart," he whispered, breath shaking, "promise me. Don't ever leave me." There was no charm in his voice. No manipulation. Only something raw. Something real. Almost like a prayer. This wasn't the first time someone begged something of me. But it was the first time the begging wasn't about letting go. It was about staying. Damon taught me how to choose. How to fight. How to take control of my own life. He taught me that I didn't always have to be the good girl. That I was allowed to think about myself. And this time, I did. I didn't speak. I didn't ask anyone what I should do. I listened to my heart. I wrapped my arms around Damon's neck and kissed him. Not out of confusion, not out of fear, but because I wanted to. Because Damon once told me. Kissing is how people show love. And I stayed. Not because he needed me. But because I loved him. So much it overflowed. So much it pulled the air from my lungs. That night, everything slipped out of control. And in the blur of skin and heat and soft gasps, I saw the other side of Damon. The one that didn't hold back. The one that burned. When I woke up, his fingers were gently combing through my hair. There was a bright, boyish smile on his face. The kind that made you forget he could break a man in half without blinking. "Sweetheart," he whispered, "I have regrets." Huh? I blinked at him, still half asleep. He leaned in and kissed me again, grinning. "I regret being a good man for so long. Should have been a villain sooner." After that night, he got busy. Really busy. One by one, he cleared out the gossipy parasites in the Morgan family. He picked out new houses for us to live, quiet, comfortable, far from the snakes. He handled business with that unshakable calm of his, turning deals and dinners into battlegrounds he always won. Meanwhile, the internet moved on. Public attention, as always, was short-lived. Soon, a bigger scandal swallowed up the headlines. A high-ranking exec got caught in a love triangle involving a male side piece and a live-streaming wife. Hundreds of thousands watched the drama unfold in real time. It was a digital circus. No one even remembered the fool and the heir anymore. I was still laughing about the absurdity of it when the doorbell rang. I opened the door. And froze. Dylan. He was standing there, eyes rimmed red. Clutching something familiar. "This stuffed puppy, it's yours, isn't it?" he asked softly. "And back then, when I got hurt, it was you who saved me, wasn't it?" My eyes dropped to the toy in his hands. That little dog. So old, so worn, one ear slightly crooked from years of squeezing. And just like that, the memories came rushing back. I was 9 that summer. I'd run off to wait for my sister outside her dance class. Just standing there, minding my own business. But I was different. And different meant wrong. The other kids circled like sharks, laughing, pointing, calling me stupid, weird, crazy. I didn't know how to fight back. I just stood there, frozen, until... bang. A fist. One of the boys dropped, nose bleeding. And there he was. Dylan. The first stranger who had ever looked at me with kindness instead of disgust. He didn't ask questions. He didn't expect thanks. He just stood between me and the world for that whole summer. Then came the years. And 13 brought us back together. Only this time, he was the one on the ground. Bleeding, curled up in the corner of an empty hallway, eyes half closed, body limp. I carried him on my back to the nearest clinic. He was heavier than me, taller too, but I didn't stop. Not once. Later, I found out his father had died on a construction site. And once the school realized there was no one left to shield him, the bullies came back. They came hard. But they didn't expect me. That summer, I did everything I was told. I ate well. I trained harder. I learned to fight, learned to win. Because if no one else would protect Dylan, I would. They called me a fool. What they didn't know was, a fool doesn't stop. A fool has nothing to lose. And when a fool fights, she fights to the bone. I made them pay. Made sure they never laid a finger on him again. He protected me first. So I made it my mission to protect him, too. But then, Dylan and Caroline became inseparable. Same desk. Same after-school schedule. They looked perfect together, 2 shining stars in everyone else's eyes. And me? I walked behind them. A quiet shadow. A silent bodyguard. There, but never seen. Now Dylan stood in front of me, eyes red, clutching the small stuffed puppy I once gave him. He spoke. And the weight of all those missing years poured out in his voice. He said he found an identical stuffed puppy in Caroline's room years ago. He thought it was hers. Thought she was the one who had saved him. That's why he stayed close to her. Why he followed that feeling. But a few days ago, things started to click. Little things. Off notes. Quiet gaps in what she knew. So he thought. And thought. And kept thinking. Until he realized the one he loved. The one who had truly been there. Was me. And now, after all this time, he'd learned what I'd gone through in the Morgan family. Not from me. But from the tabloids. From gossip. From whispers. From blood-stained headlines. And he'd come. To ask. To remember. To see if it was too late. "Bella, I love you," Dylan said, voice hoarse, eyes rimmed in red. "Come with me, please. I swear, from now on, I'll take care of you. I won't let anyone treat you the way they did here." His hand trembled slightly as he showed me a photo of the little stuffed dog I'd once given him. He remembered. He knew my dreams. My favorites. The small, strange things that made me feel seen. And he used them, one by one, to try to win me back. He said so much. Too much. My head felt light, spinning. My chest tight. And my mouth tasted bitter. Go? A voice cut through the air like thunder. Damon. Back from a business dinner, unexpected, unannounced, and furious. I had never seen him like this. Not cold. Burning. His rage came in stillness, in the sharp focus of a man ready to tear down worlds. Where exactly, he said, voice low and lethal, do you think you're taking my wife? I panicked. Damon was dangerous when provoked. And Dylan, he didn't stand a chance. But before anything could snap, Damon stilled. His expression shifted, just for a moment. A flicker of something painful behind the fury. And then he smiled. But it wasn't warmth. It was wicked, bitter, beautiful. Like a man who'd been stabbed but decided to laugh while pulling the blade out himself. Sweetheart, he said, voice dripping with poison-sweet menace, you get to choose. Stay with me. His smile darkened. Or pick him, and I'll make sure he doesn't live long enough to regret it. I didn't hesitate. I wrapped my arms around Damon, burying my face in his chest. There was no decision to make. Dylan walked out of the Morgan estate alive. Bruised, bloodied, and limping. But alive. And once the gates closed behind him, Damon turned back to me. His fury hadn't left. He threw me onto the bed, his body pinning me down, arms locked like steel bars. Sweetheart, he growled, eyes burning with possession, I don't care if you lied to me. I don't care if it was about Dylan. You're not leaving. Not now. Not ever. His teeth scraped my skin, sharp, punishing, leaving behind blooming marks like wildflowers in the dark. Mine, he muttered against my neck, voice low and fraying, like it was the only thing holding him together. You're mine. And I answered him with everything I had. Idiot, I whispered, curling my fingers around the back of his neck, pulling him closer. I stayed, because I wanted to stay. Huh? He froze. Tilted his head. Just like a confused puppy, eyes wide, as if he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Sweetheart. That one word, drawn out in his warm, low voice, turned my entire chest to syrup. He didn't know. Didn't know that somewhere along the way, long before today, he had quietly replaced Dylan in my heart. Damon taught me that love and gratitude aren't the same thing. And today, Dylan's confession? It washed away whatever leftover feelings I still had for him. Because no. I'm not a clueless, brainless fool. I'm just someone who takes longer to understand things. Slower to piece the world together. But once I see it clearly, I see it all. Dylan had been in my thoughts for 13 years. But I knew him far better than he thought I did. He was smart, sharp, even. The kind of smart that lets him read people in a single glance. A man like that doesn't fail to recognize his savior. He just chooses not to. And when faced with a choice between my perfect, dazzling sister and me, the silly, weird, slow version of a girl, he made his decision. Over and over. Even when he had chances to look closer. To remember. To ask. He didn't want the truth. He wanted the easier fantasy. A fantasy where he was adored, flattered, worshipped. And all he had to do was accept it. But love? Love is not convenient. Love is not passive. Love is Damon. The man who rages when I'm hurt. The man who breaks when I cry. The man who never once asked me to change. Because to him, I was already enough. So no. I wasn't going to throw that away. Not for a man who only came back when it was too late. Not for someone who mistook comfort for love and silence for loyalty. Not for someone who saw me only when the world had already chewed me up. Dylan was a closed chapter. Damon was everything else. Damon was a jealous wreck with zero sense of security. If he had it his way, I think he would have strapped me to his body, just to make sure no man even looked at me too long. He was terrified of being left. Just like I used to be. Lately, he clung to me like gravity. Everywhere I went, he followed, arms tight around my waist, voice always a murmur away. As if, in every quiet moment, he feared someone might knock and steal me away. The rest of the Morgan family noticed. They laughed at him behind his back, sure. But no one dared act out. Because Damon's brand of jealousy wasn't harmless. It was razor sharp. Controlled. Precise. And it cut deep. Take Terry, for example. His own brother. Since that incident, Terry became a walking cautionary tale. Eating? Slapped. At a nightclub? Beaten. Even in his sleep. Someone would creep in and slap him awake, over and over, until he was crying for mercy. Nothing fatal. Just, slow, methodical unraveling. By month 6, Terry was skin and bones, twitchy and hollow-eyed, dragging his sorry body to me in desperation. I was wrong, okay, he sobbed. I get it now. Please. I just want one night of sleep without nightmares. Please talk to your husband. Please, have mercy. Even Morgan Madam, the once lioness of the house, tried stepping in. Terry, terrified, slapped a hand over her mouth before she could finish. Mom, he hissed, trembling, if you love me even a little, shut up. You want to get me killed? Damon hadn't forgotten how she humiliated me. The livestream. The names. The betrayal. And he knew exactly how much she loved Terry. So every time she made a move, he tightened the screws. One more month of hell for her precious son. But all that paled in comparison to what came next. 8 months after I married Damon. He gave me the wedding he said I always deserved. Not small. Not hidden. Not rushed. It was breathtaking. Romantic. Public. Perfect. And he livestreamed the whole thing. Our love story, broadcast to the world. This was never a transaction, Damon said into the camera, fingers laced in mine. There was no plan. No trick. No manipulation. Just her, Bella. Pure, kind, and the best thing that's ever happened to me. Marrying her, he looked right into the lens. Was me reaching far, far above my worth. Then he handed me something. A property transfer agreement. All his assets, transferred to me. Everything he owned. Everything he built. His love wasn't quiet. It wasn't subtle. It was loud. Blazing. Unapologetic. The world watched and knew. Damon Morgan didn't just love me. He belonged to me. She showed up on our wedding day, my sister. Drunk out of her mind, tears streaking through her makeup, swaying in heels too high for her regret to balance. She pulled me aside, slurring apologies between sobs. Telling me she was sorry, telling me she was proud of me, telling me she wished me all the happiness in the world. She said she liked Dylan, really liked him. And what he did? Hurt. She tried to pretend it didn't, but her voice cracked too many times. I reached for her hand and held it tightly. Then I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Don't waste your heart on a man who can't choose. He didn't deserve you." It was the most honest thing I could give her. At the reception, our parents sat at one table with Mrs. Morgan. Knocking back drinks like it was a competitive sport. The air around them buzzed with old grudges and stubborn pride. No one wanted to lose. So they all did. Drunk. Flat out. When I helped my parents stumble back to their room, my dad mumbled something through slurred speech. Voice thick and low. "Sweetheart, you be happy, okay? Don't hate us, please. I don't. And I didn't. I didn't hate them. But I didn't ache for their approval anymore, either. My time in the Morgan family taught me how to think for myself. To see people for what they are. Not just what I needed them to be. My parents? They weren't cruel. They were just average. Flawed. Scared. They gave me love. Just enough love to get by. To blur the lines of right and wrong in a life I barely understood. But I was writing my own story now. And I was done carrying weight that didn't belong to me. That night, our wedding night. Damon handed me a cardboard box. Inside, a scruffy little mutt with a shaved tail wagged its way into my lap. Eyes wide, tongue out, a bandage still wrapped around one leg. We'd found it weeks ago. Lying in the road after being hit by a car. We rushed it to the vet together. It recovered fast, faster than I thought possible. Now it was healthy, joyful, waving its little paw at me like it was saying hi. It was the ugliest cute thing I'd ever seen. Damon smiled. He hadn't just brought me a puppy. He'd brought me me. The lost, injured version. The one no one saw bleeding on the inside. The one too afraid to ask for help, too unsure to believe she deserved saving. He gave me that little dog. Not as a gift. But as a reminder. I wasn't that girl anymore. Not because I changed. But because someone finally saw her. And stayed. Damon, I whispered, breath trembling between words, I really, really love you. His lips brushed mine, his voice low and full of heat. Sweetheart, love isn't something you just say. Before I could respond, he had me beneath him. Eyes dark, breath warm, holding me like I was the only thing in his universe. The rest of my sentence disappeared into a kiss. Deep and hungry, all teeth and heat, where even the silence was loud. Somewhere in the background, the puppy barked. A sharp, innocent sound. Damon didn't even glance back. He simply reached for the door. And shut it. Soft fabric tore, and the night turned into a slow-burning song. Each breath, each movement, a promise written into skin. And there, tangled in warmth and shadow, we made a vow. His fingers laced tightly through mine. No space. No air. Just us. Bella, he said, voice rough but sure. Damon wants year after year, every single one, with you.